Welcome to the New England and New York Real Estate Journal Corporate Roundtable. I'm your host, Rick Kaplan. Joining us today at the Roundtable is Maugel Architects. Let me introduce you to the Maugel team. First, we have Brent Margle, a noted design influencer for more than 40 years. Brent Margle is the founder and president of Maugel Architects, an award-winning architectural planning and design firm headquartered in Harvard, Mass. His service-oriented approach and dedication to enriching people's lives has been the foundation to his firm's success. Next, we have Jonathan Cocker. John Cocker is a principal at Maugel Architects and leads the firm's healthcare team. John's broad range of healthcare design and project management experience includes a diverse portfolio of building types and clients with the patient care and medical manufacturing sectors. Next is Mike Coons. Mike Coons is the principal in charge of Maugel's industrial and commercial businesses. He has over 20 years of complex project experience and is responsible for managing relationships with many of Maugel's largest clients. Next, we have Mark Pelletier. Mark Pelletier is a principal at Maugel, where he leads the science and advanced technology team. Mark has deep experience in the science markets, having worked for over 20 years designing advanced science and technology projects throughout the industry. Now I'm going to turn it over to Brent Margle for the company overview.
Well, thank you, Rick. I had a chuckle about those headshots of us and the principals. The secret to our success there is the used pictures taken 10 years ago when we were young. Those are better days. And also, Rick, I was amazed at the attendance at the networking session. That was fantastic to see. So many faces of people we've had fun with over the years, working on great projects together. And I have to compliment those who endorsed us, that you presented it just the way we scripted it for you. So thank you. Just kidding about that, but it was great to see so many people that we've worked with over the years. So it's always a pleasure, Rick, to see you and talk about our favorite thing, that being real estate New England. So thanks for having us and welcome to the audience. We've got a lot to cover this morning in a relatively short period of time, so let's get right after it by talking about some numbers about the firm. So we are approaching 30 years in the business, started in 1993. Our sweet spot is designing buildings that cost between $5 and $25 million. But if you look at our portfolio, you see we have a very, very diverse one, and we do projects of various sizes and types of buildings, resulting in over 100 new project starts annually. So that tells you we're pretty busy and our staff is pretty efficient. About 2 years ago, we acquired the Stefano Architects in beautiful downtown Portsmouth, New Hampshire, getting us to 40 people. But we would like to be at about 50 people next year at this time. So please spread the word that we're hiring at all levels. If you know anybody that knows Revit drafting or anybody who'd like to advance their career, please have them send us a resume. So next slide, please. Who we are. We're a team, first off, of architects, planners, and interior designers. And we have, I guess what we'd say is a passion for designing with purpose. And by that, I mean our mission statement is to enrich the lives of other people, most especially those who end up using the buildings and the spaces that we design. Our culture is very people-centric. We want to take care and focus on the needs of our employees and the needs of our clients and, of course, our communities, where we are very active in volunteerism and in charitable contributions. So next slide, please. What we do, first and foremost, we are partners with our clients, advocates for their needs. And we provide services and advice that's beyond the traditional scopes of services for architects and designers. By that, I mean that we provide services such as needs assessment. Sometimes the client isn't really clear on what their vision is for the project. We help do site analysis to determine that the site that they're looking at is correct for their purpose. And we do building due diligence to help companies that are moving from one place to another make sure that the new home is adequate for serving their future needs. So we've found that these items or these tasks that we do lend to the quality of the project. The quality is dependent upon the services that we provide even before design has begun. And this has become a real differentiator for us over the years and helped our clients a great deal. So next slide, please. In the development market, our client list is effectively the who's who of developers in the greater Boston area, in the New England region. And thankfully, we've worked for some of these companies since we started back in 1993 in the early 90s. And we've become what we like to say is trusted advisors to them. Next slide, please. So how do we create value? How are we any different from anyone else when it creates value for our clients? First, we protect the return on investment. We make design decisions which save them money while preserving the design intent that we want for the building, the appearance of it. We do this in 4 intentional actions. We make no assumptions, first of all. Every project has got its own challenges. Secondly, we present an array of options. We design different cost points. Thirdly, we provide value engineering very early on in the project so as to avoid over-design that leads to construction cost increases. And lastly, we've heard that we are very service-oriented. We're very responsive in the way we do business with our clients, and they always appreciate that. The end result of these 4 actions is that we, over time, save millions of dollars of construction costs for our clients. Next slide, please. So today we'll be discussing the 4 market segments that are really red hot. Each principal will now take just a couple minutes to present their market of expertise, and then we'll kick it back to Rick for some Q&A. So we'll start with Mark Pelletier and his discussion of life sciences and advanced technologies. Mark?
Great. Thank you, Brent. Next slide, Rick, please. It may come as a surprise to some people, but Maugel Architects has been working in the science and advanced technology market for 20 years. We work across a broad range of sectors, which include biotech, biopharmaceutical, biomanufacturing, medical device, diagnostics, and clinical labs. We help our clients with master planning, developing lab standards, and most recently, a lot of repositioning and building assessments. Next slide, please. Here's a snapshot of some of our science and tech clients. Many have been with us from the beginning and are still working with us today. Take Bruker, for example. We've done over 150,000 square feet of various labs for Bruker and Billerica. LeMaitre, we've done 9 projects for LeMaitre. We're currently working on 3 labs in Burlington. Biotechne, here in our own backyard in Devens. We designed their original lab in 2001, and we recently finished a lab and warehouse expansion last year. Next slide, please. Okay, we're excited about this project. This is a repositioning that we're currently designing for RMR with the Richmond Group in Lexington in the Hartwell Ave area. Hartwell Ave has been an extremely active area. We've done more than a half a dozen projects in that area in the past couple of years. It has a high concentration of life science companies and has become, I guess you would call it a mini cluster, a science mini cluster. Next slide, please. Here's a lab we did for Spring Bank, now F-Star Therapeutics in Hopkinton. This is a great example of a fast-growing startup company. We helped develop their master plan, and within that plan, we programmed future growth. This is a project that included 30,000 square feet of chemistry, biology, analytical, and instrumentation labs. Next slide, please. Okay, now Mike will talk to you about our industrial work.
Thank you, Mark. Appreciate it. as you guys know, the industrial market is booming, and here are some of the types of the buildings we're working on. Flex industrial, manufacturing, warehouse, research and development, last mile distribution, and repositioning of existing buildings. Next slide, please. Here are some of our industrial clients. Condyne Capital has been a great partner for us over the last few years with getting clients like Pitney Bowes and Wayfair in the Blue Star Industrial Park, which I have a couple slides that I'll share with you guys. Next slide. And here is Blue Star. Blue Star Industrial Park is one of the largest continuous industrial parks in Massachusetts. It consists of 11 buildings totaling over 850,000 square feet, which include retail, office, warehouse distribution, and flex industrial. Next slide, please. Here's a look at the first two buildings in the park. We use concrete tilt-up construction along with ACM panels at the entry. We utilized glass in the warehouse areas to bring more natural light into those warehouses. Next slide, please. Here's a look at the interior. All these buildings are 32-foot clear, which allow flexibility in racking. We also have a 60-foot speed bay in the loading dock, where you see the loading dock doors, which allow for good flexibility. Next slide. And then next up, we have Jonathan Cocker to talk about healthcare.
Thank you, Mike. This is a list of the focus areas in healthcare. We range from acute care, which is hospital work, to outpatient facilities, primary care, pediatrics, diagnostic lab services, all the way down to dental offices and long-term care or skilled nursing facilities. Next slide, please. Our clients range from hospitals like Sturdy and LGH to long-term primary care clients like Acton Medical to smaller orthodontic offices like Reichelt Ting. Next slide, please. This is an example of one of the major trends that we see in medical work today. This is a consolidation into a single medical office building that Sturdy did. It combines 7 different practices. It allows for patients to come to one location to gain access to services such as urgent care, primary care, pediatrics, diagnostic services, women's health, generally these are being located away from hospitals where patients live, focused on providing better patient access. Next slide, please. This is an example of hospital work we're doing. This happens to be for Sturdy. This is a new inpatient pharmacy, and this particular project is really the catalyst for about 3 other projects that we're doing for Sturdy. As departments move around, we're backfilling with new updated facilities for other areas of the hospital that are slightly outdated. With that, we're going to transition to Brent Margle and housing.
Next slide, please. Thanks, John. Nice job, you guys. Good presentations. Housing is, as you know, the state has essentially said there is a housing crisis in the state of Massachusetts, and it is tremendously busy. That's why we've included it in the 4 segments that we are experiencing that are red hot. We do all disciplines of housing. And next slide, please. And we anticipate that where the growth will be in the near future is both in affordable housing and assisted care and senior housing. This is a market housing project that we included in a slideshow because if you go to our website, we have a video of the developer who did this project, and it includes a virtual reality imaging video of a walkthrough and a flyover that you might want to check out. Next slide, please. It's what is now quite typical podium construction, which means the steel and concrete structure below grade or subterranean to accommodate the parking, and then wood frame structure above that, 3 to 5 stories. And we're seeing this prototype used all over the New England region. Next slide, please. So there are other phenomenons going on, and there's one of them, as you probably know, is most towns are trying to get housing back into the centers to develop a mixed-use district within the town. This is a virtual reality rendering of an infill project that is a quite different context because it's flat roofs to match the flat roof buildings that are already existing in downtown. Next slide, please. And this is an example of podium construction, but a very different style because it is in an overlay district in Burlington, Mass. It's a central business district. So it had to look somewhat institutional or regal as opposed to what might be done in Walpole, where we're working on another project that's in over 60 acres. Next slide, please. And of course, with the Stefano Group has had a long history of doing fantastic waterfront homes on the New England coast and in the Lakes region. Here's a few examples. Next slide, please. And by the way, the phenomenon seems to be because of COVID that people are realizing they can sell their existing home and go build their retirement home and work out of it. So that division, that part of our business is very, very active. So I think it's time to return it to Rick.
Thank you, Brent. Thank you, team. Great information, great presentation. We're going to start with the first question to the team. So we've all just came through a year of COVID. Many of our attendees are interested in hearing about how your clients have fared through the pandemic and where you're seeing the most activity today. Brent, why don't you start with that in the housing market?
Okay, specific to the housing market, we weren't terribly affected. We stayed busy all the way through the pandemic. I think there was one job where they decided not to go ahead with it. There were a few jobs that were in construction and they slowed down a bit because of the concern of the labor force not wanting to go work on a construction site. And we had about 3 months where our numbers were off primarily just because of the slowing down. But we've seen a very steady and robust return since the fall. And what I guess we're just surprised and thankful that in the housing segment of what we do, we stayed busy right through the pandemic.
Yeah, and that's
I think some others, Mark, I've stayed busy. Mark, what are your comments on it?
Yeah, we're really fortunate that we live in the #1 life cluster in the world, Massachusetts. When the pandemic developed and came about, we remained busy. We were pedal to the floor. The market has stayed pretty strong for us. It didn't seem to skip a beat at all. We noticed a lot of activity outside of the Boston proper area, particularly in those that are notoriously developing into the mini clusters like Waltham, Lexington, Wakefield, Bedford, Burlington, and even we're seeing a tremendous amount of activity in Worcester as well.
Yeah, I'd agree with that, Mark. The industrial space, COVID accelerated the need for it. E-commerce, nobody has to leave their house to order anything. The last mile distribution, like I said, Blue Star, 75% of the tenants is for the last mile distribution. Also cold storage, automation of warehouses so people don't have to work as close together, and the use of robots, which merges with Mark's sector. So
yeah, we're certainly seeing a lot of overlap in some of our activities because there's been an increase in the biomanufacturing, and so obviously they want to be close to their R&D counterparts, but they don't want to be in a position to pay those high rents, and they need space, and so they're defaulting back to the 495 area, which happens to be our sweet spot.
Yeah, and certainly from my perspective, hospitals and medical providers were hugely affected by COVID. Initially, when COVID hit, we had 3 projects that were under construction or just finishing, and it was a race to finish those and get them online, just to provide better care and protection for staff, but also to be able to space out patients further in new facilities. From there, it kind of transitioned and a couple of projects went on pause, mostly just focused to allow staff to focus on caring for patients and learning how to deal with COVID. And once that was under control and staff became comfortable with the reduced elective procedures that were going on and being able to care for patients, then all of our design work resumed and is really continued to grow through all of this. That we're going back and looking at areas in the hospital such as central sterile, ORs, pre and post-op areas, emergency departments, and trying to bring in lessons learned from COVID and how can we improve these facilities for future pandemics as well.
Great. So what are some of the challenges your clients are facing now? Mike, what challenges are you seeing in the industrial sector?
Finding enough space, enough land. In Massachusetts and New England, it's tough to find a lot of acreage for land. So we're having to look at different opportunities. As we all know, malls are becoming more and more vacant. So looking at malls as land, they have the amount of trucking that needs to go in and out. And usually they're right off a highway too. Auto dealerships, looking at those types of lands. It's just that's a big thing, is the land and finding enough space to accommodate the amount of traffic and that it will take to have an industrial park.
Look, in medical, there's a couple of things that have come out of this. Coming out of the pandemic, the first question I get asked is how can we add additional airborne isolation rooms or negative pressure rooms so that we can control infectious diseases like this in the future. And that ranges not only in the hospitals, but also in primary care. Primary care is one of the first lines of defense where somebody's going in to receive testing, and we need to protect staff and other patients in those. Beyond that, there's in the emergency department world, there's an increased need for behavioral health beds that with the drug epidemics that are going on, that's a huge growing sector for our clients. And in primary care, it's really focused on patient experience and moving facilities to where patients are, clustering them together so that patients can go to one building for services versus having to go to 3 or 4 different stops depending on what the next test or next procedure is that you need.
I would say on the life science side of things, there's a number of challenges that my clients are facing, most recently as a result of COVID. The first thing is that there's still a huge amount of money in life science, venture capital dollars. So that is stimulating the growth in the science, and time to market is everything right now. Clients are going where they can get space the quickest. They want labs ready to go, and they want them move in ready, which as a result, many of our developer partners are repurposing some of their old tired commercial buildings. I can't tell you how many buildings I've walked through in the past couple of years where I've been asked to look at the building and it's a vacant building that's been vacant for quite some time, and now they're saying, hey, it's in Lexington. Let's see if we can convert this building to a lab-ready facility and capture some of that high demand for space. I mentioned earlier for McGuire, that's in the Lexington Hartwell area. in the mini clusters. So people are taking advantage of those areas, the mini clusters that are developing. And then, of course, there's the flex space too. Most recently, I've been asked to take floors out of buildings and convert them into a flex building, if you will, or take flex buildings and get them lab ready for some of the biomanufacturing users that are out there. So that's sort of been the real response and the challenges we're facing. Another one, that I'm currently working on is I have a couple of clients that are trying to quicken their time to market, and they're purchasing product lines. So I have lab companies, clients that are acquiring product lines from, like one, for example, is from Australia, and they're purchasing that product line, and then we have to convert that lab and bring it here in the US and make it meet all the US regulations. So we're seeing a lot of that activity now. So it's much easier for a company to purchase a product line and create more growth and fill the demand for whatever the science might be.
So I'll do a wrap on this, Rick, in terms of challenges for housing. The obvious one is finding land, just like Mike was talking about. But there are some other intangible challenges. One being that there's still a stigma and opposition to 40B projects in most communities. There's even some stigma about affordable housing, even though that's so worthy. And so there's a lot of work to be done in the zoning improvements. I'm going to talk about solutions to the housing challenges maybe later in another question, but land acquisition, zoning, and public sentiment about large housing projects are the current challenges.
Great. Let's, oh, did you have something to say, Mark, to add to that?
Well, the zoning, Brent brings up a great point. A lot of towns are creating or supporting the growth, particularly around the multifamily and the life science with zoning overlays, which reposition the land to identify, their previous zoning requirements with an overlay to allow for that new use and growth. So we're seeing a lot of that activity. There's a lot of support with town municipalities. Great.
Let's move on to the next question, which is now let's look to the future. Now, as you look out 2 to 5 years, how do you see your core markets evolving? And I'm sure this is going to be quite a bit right now with what has happened in the past year.
I'll kick that one off. In the housing market, as I mentioned earlier, it's very strong now. We expect it to be for the next 3 to 5 years and possibly beyond. Basically, the confidence we have about that is based on statistics. If you look at the aging population, there are 1 in 5 currently that are over 65 years old, and they anticipate in 20 years it will be nearly double that. So where do these people go to live a dignified life in their golden years? So that's something that is going to generate activity. Also assisted care, Alzheimer's, memory facilities, those are all part of the demographics that are going to keep the housing population booming for years to come. Not to mention that the population is increasing in general, about 1.6 million people per year, as much as this is a staggering statistic and probably going to be considered a political football in the future, but 38% of the increasing population in America today is immigrants. And there's no solution for immigrant housing at the moment unless they assimilate into the population seamlessly. So bottom line is, Rick, I think housing is going to be very busy for quite some time.
Well, we'll go to John because he's dealing with the healthcare, and that's going to probably be a big segment of evolution because of what's going on.
Well, Rick,
Okay,
it speaks to why we are in these industries. No joke, about 5 years ago, we say, what are going to be the strong industries of the future? What market segments do we want to be players in? And luckily, we hit 4 out of 4. So we have great confidence that these markets are going to be strong. And anybody out there in the audience that's in them, particularly I hear a lot of people in the affordable housing sector, I think we should have great confidence about what we can provide to the future of these disciplines.
I think you made good choices.
Yeah. So in healthcare, I see a few things coming in the future. We've been fortunate to be working in some of the core facilities and hospitals over the last few years in emergency departments or operating rooms or central sterile plants. And typically those areas are landlocked in a hospital. You're always scrounging for more real estate to be able to expand and meet new codes. So as we do those projects, we're always trying to bring in services that and try and future-proof them, right? We're bringing in med gas. We're trying to make sure there's enough capacity or enough electrical service for new equipment or new procedures that are going to come down the line. Technology that the companies that Mark is working for, makes its way into hospitals, and we have to continually plan for that future growth. The second item that I think is going to change is patients are driving for different experiences. Coming out of COVID, one of the big things was telehealth became much more popular. You called your doctor to see, do I need to come in or do I need to go to A, B, or C location for testing, or can we diagnose something from home to minimize the spread of a pandemic that was going on? I see that trend staying and continuing to grow in healthcare. The next round of patient-driven changes that I see is, we're all used to at our house today using our phone to control lights or turn a TV on or speak to Siri or Alexa and all of those different capabilities. In terms of making hospitals friendlier when you arrive and making it more home-like, I see that Internet of Things making its way into the hospital in the future, that a patient, while they're in a med surg room, as opposed to having to call a nurse to change a light setting or change the temperature in the room, may have access from their phone to those things to provide just a different patient service level and comfort that they're used to at their house. And the last thing that I see continuing on is consolidation of services, that as hospital groups either acquire different practices, consolidating them into complementary buildings so that patients can go to one location or at most 2 locations to get the services that they need, just to make patient access easier, but also to consolidate their real estate holdings.
Yeah, and in industrial, I mean, the future is as bright as can be. In Massachusetts, there's a need for about 42 million square feet of industrial space, and we only have about 13 available. So we got to find alternative building types. Like I said earlier, malls, dealerships, big box stores have gone out. We got to use those spaces, and we have to find construction types to be able to build the buildings faster. One of those being the concrete tilt-up, where you just pour everything right there in sight within the footprint of the building, and you can do about 23 panels in about a day. So those are the types of things that'll be moving forward.
Well, I don't see the life science slowing down anytime soon. And in fact, I think we'll continue to see the growth of biomanufacturing likely to continue along the 495 corridor, where it's lower congestion, cheaper land, and the workforce, quite frankly, wants to live.
And Mark, I think a point you made last week in the office was that in life sciences, the R&D might be taking place in Cambridge and Boston, but the manufacturing is going to be at a better price point out in the suburbs. You're seeing that?
Yeah, I mean, that's certainly certainly the trend right now. They want, they want to be in the suburbs. They want to be close enough to their R&D counterpart, but they don't want to pay the rents for 90 or 60,000 square foot facility. So they're certainly looking in the suburbs. And, also, I think what we'll continue to see is the trend of these incubator models developing, where they're small, flexible, affordable, leasable arrangements that emerge around the biotech companies. And there's some great models that have been developed over time with the Massachusetts biomedical initiative, I'm sorry. And then of course, there's the Massachusetts Life Science Initiative. These programs are put in place for developing strategies to help the infrastructure, if you will, help build the infrastructure of these life science companies. So, and they're partnered with, they collaborate with the academics, the business side of things, and the government, and that helps push the product from development to shelf. So those models are going to continue to grow. I think we'll continue to see a lot of zoning overlays that will help with these BSL labs that are, concerns of certain communities, where it will position them to be in a successful development. And then the looks of the labs are going to probably continue to trend. Right now, the physical appearance, years ago, the movable lab benches and flexible design, we were incorporating those into our designs, but labs never really changed. They kind of got settled by the users. I can't tell you how many labs moving those movable benches to create more space in labs. So you're going to see the physical.
Mark, I think you're going to need your own segment.
Yeah. Well, I think if I cut it short, you're gonna what you're gonna see as far as the physical appearance of labs is the layouts. They're gonna continue to heed the warning of providing more space so that we prevent the spread of viruses. You're gonna see more personal space within those labs, more PPE, the personal protection equipment, as part of the protocol. And you're going to see more stringent protocols put in place for hygiene. And oddly enough, the sterile surfaces are coming back. At one point, we were trending to making labs more relaxed, if you will. And now they're becoming, they've kind of taken a U-turn, and the surfaces are becoming more sterile again because of the confidence in how you can prevent the spread of germs and viruses. So we're going to see a lot more stainless steel and white subway tile, that kind of thing. And then I think Mike might have mentioned it earlier, but you're going to see a lot of animation in labs as well, taking the user right out of some of the more riskier procedures or precise procedures. So we're going to see a lot more automation, sorry.
Look at that. Mark is the one that doesn't really like to be in these conferences. He doesn't enjoy speaking.
Yeah.
And now he's taking over the whole show.
I hate being in the spotlight.
Well, it's a hot topic right now, Mark.
Yeah.
I did get my COVID-19 vaccine yesterday.
Oh, congratulations.
And, it's amazing. They had like a snake of a line waiting to get in to get a shot. That's incredible.
Yeah.
Usually people are running out of the office away from getting a shot. Well, we have a few questions that we have from the audience, and there's been one general question that a lot of people have submitted, and this is kind of put them all in a bundle so you can answer it. How did Maugel successfully navigate the challenges of COVID as an organization?
Okay, I'll take that one, Rick. And Rick, how much time do we have, and how many more questions so we can?
We have about 15 minutes.
Okay,
So
right.
we have enough time to go through 3 questions.
So I'll only take 14 minutes to answer this question. So we were very fortunate because we had flexibility in place before the COVID even existed. By that I mean, as I mentioned, we have some young people with young families, and we were set up for remote working before the pandemic made us go remote. I remember that we just made the decision on a Friday to go remote, and on Tuesday everybody was all set up with multiple monitors and all the equipment they needed. We took the COVID very seriously. We did protocols, and I think we exaggerated communication. So we would have phone calls every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, plus some more hands-on decks Zoom calls. And believe it or not, our communication and our coordination actually improved because of the ultra uber communication we did. So we survived it quite well. We did do the PPP money, which kept everybody, proud to say, everybody in the company was kept, and kept everybody employed through the entire pandemic. So we survived very well. But it's basically on people's dedication and commitment to work hard, even though the boss isn't looking over their shoulder. We just got some great people that are very responsible to their tasks.
Yeah, and I think it goes without saying, we have a pretty strong virtual presence. We always have, particularly because we do everything model based. So it was pretty easy for us to have these conversations with clients on very particular design details, because we were living in the virtual world anyways. So whether we were sitting with them across a table or on a video conference like this, it didn't really matter. We could show them the real situation that we were discussing at hand, and we take a lot of the uncertainty out of that process.
Yeah, a lot of that we owe to Mr. Jonathan Cocker, who runs the heads up our IT and make sure that we have all our computers, and he spent hours and hours and hours helping people navigate through, why isn't my microphone working? How come I can't see somebody? What, the Zoom call's not working, my screens aren't working. John really stepped up and helped us out quite a bit. So,
and I might take this opportunity to thank a couple of people, give credit where credit due, is Robin Peters, Maureen Hopper, John Lawler in particular, the real leaders in the company that helped keep everybody moving forward. What's next?
Well, we found out about John's experience with computers right before we started this morning. Very knowledgeable. So, if you ever need any technical advice, you can also call John for that as well. So we'll move on to the next question. This was sent in by Lisa Maroney from Chelmsford. What are some of the methods and ideas from municipalities to work more closely with property owners of vacant office buildings toward business attraction?
Well, Lisa should be answering that question because she's so good at it.
Well, Lisa is going to be on a panel tomorrow for north of Boston, so she can answer that as well.
No, talk about Uber communication. She's been fantastic in doing what she does. And I just think it's continued outreach, continued coordination of transportation, branding, amenity-rich communities to help support the vacant office buildings. As you know, we're now in a live, work, play environment where everybody wants to be close to amenities where they work and where they live. So I think she's doing the right things. Of course, you've got to get the support of zoning boards to be flexible and what they allow to go in next to an office building. It's kind of like hotels all want a restaurant next to them. well, office buildings now that want that too. Walking trails, biking facilities, any kind of enrichment of the amenities is what it takes. And they said they're doing a great job of it.
Yeah, I think finding the right developer to team up with the building owner is key. Trying to find a match to have somebody develop those vacant buildings.
And it takes some investment. I mean, you don't want to push it back on the developer, but it takes some investment. I know at 5 Omni, Griffith Properties bought a vacant building and they put some money into it and it worked because the Comcast took the whole building a year later. So kudos to those that have the gumption to invest in an empty building to make it marketable.
Well, isn't it beneficial for the city or town to work with a developer to make this happen? Because it benefits the city or the town if they have you don't have 50 empty buildings, on a street, so
Mm-hmm.
I would think that would be a benefit for them. Any other comments on that?
Well, maybe just that the people that make the decisions are the ones on the board. So municipalities should be careful about who they endorse to be on the various boards that they're pro-development or they're not. And you got to be careful about how those boards are staffed.
Yeah, that's a big thing too. Yeah. Agree with that, Brent.
Okay. Let's move on to the next question. What are the 3 top concerns to develop high-density residential? And this is probably Brent's specialty on this. And this was submitted by Duncan Chapman of KW Realty.
That's a setup, Duncan. You could have just called me. We could have had a conversation. We will do so. The challenges to high density is similar to what I mentioned earlier about public perception. But I have 2 theories about that. We have, as a company, have 2 theories about that. One is that we would promote vertical housing, meaning let's make the building footprints smaller and make their height higher to preserve green space and amenity space on parcels. That's pretty controversial because most people don't like tall buildings, particularly in the suburbs. But if you find the right parcel, it works. Secondly, right-sized homes. By that, I mean the small homes, the tiny homes, the right-sized homes, where you can have higher density but smaller square footages. So we would be promoting that. And then there's different housing building types, but one was actually created back in the 60s. It's called the big house, where you put 8 or 10 units in a building that looks like an elegant large home. So those are the things that we're seeing and promoting. And of course, restoration of existing buildings. We renovated the old piano factory. It's called Ivory Keys, and it was a really dilapidated building, but it turned into an exceptional property, affordable property, as well as school buildings can be recycled for that purpose. And they're really quite nice. We did one in Salisbury where the ceilings remained at their 12-foot height and the huge windows. And well, there's a lot of opportunities for increasing density if it's done with sensitive design.
Brent, I was just thinking, it almost seems like every time we get a real high density project, something with like over 150 units of housing, it's almost always a concern of the planning board that they don't want this to be a massive looking building. So it almost always turns into a scale issue, right?
Yep, I agree.
Now, didn't you just complete a project in Lynn, the YMCA?
Yeah, we're just wrapping that up. That's a 72,000 square foot facility on Neptune Boulevard that we just just finished. It includes childcare, so there's 5 classrooms for childcare. There's a natatorium, a weightlifting area, nautilus area, a gym, a full basketball court that we planned for future expansion, so we could double that gym years from now. And in fact, one of the biggest challenges with that particular project is after permitting and after construction broke ground, we were challenged with the idea of putting a green roof on the building. So we had to go back to the boards and re-engineer the roof to accommodate a green roof in addition to a penthouse and elevator that went to the roof level. So the roof level is part of their education system. The YMCA has some fantastic programs out there about teaching kids how to eat healthy, live healthy, and generally around healthy living.
Mark, what was the construction cost of that? And tell them how many years of your life you devoted to it.
We'll see the gray hair. So we started that project 6.5 years ago. It was a complex project because there was a parcel of land that was purchased that was owned by the city to allow this facility to have its appropriate footprint.
What was the cost?
Oh, 30 mil, just under 30 million.
So that was a real nice project for us. I don't know, Rick, if there's any questions about sustainability that Mark mentioned, but I would just like to express that in the past, sustainability was desired and everybody talked about it, but it was rarely implemented. And now it is a mainstream requirement of design, thankfully so, and it's publicly accepted at all levels. So we're seeing smart homes, we're seeing new technologies, new kinds of concrete that actually have insulation in it. And so when you talk about the future, that's a discipline that's really going to do some great things for our industry.
Well, I appreciate you throwing that in, Brent. But before we're coming close to the very end of this, I just I'll ask one question. If you could tell everyone in the audience, what don't you like working for? What don't you like about working for Margle Architects? No, I'm just kidding. No, so just last words. I mean, I know all of you. We've done a couple of things together, and I think you all are always very upbeat, very positive, and Brent is a perfect example because he's always like that. So if you had to say a couple last words about what you do for a living, what would you say about that? Look, I got you all to freeze.
Yeah, I don't want to monopolize the conversation. I'll go last, but let's.
I think for me, it's working with people, it's collaborating, it's being with one another. I've been with Maugel for 20-something years, and I started when I was 10, and I grew up with Maugel. So I think just working with everybody and collaborating and just being one big family.
Yeah, I think for me, I just look forward to the next projects. It's always exciting to see, the idea presented in front of you, and then how do we develop that, nurture that, and have that. My team loves to charrette, and they get all jazzed up. They start, drawing on each other's drawings, and it almost like we go back to our roots as architects, and we really enjoy that process. It's a fantastic process. Of course, we all get stuck writing reports and doing billing and invoicing or spreadsheets, but we're all architects at heart here, and we really just, I actually remember the first week my first week working here, Brent and I came back from an interview, and we didn't even have the job yet. And it was about 6 o'clock when we got back to the office. And next thing I know, I look up, we're both sitting at his drafting table, sketching some ideas until about 8 o'clock at night, and realized everybody had gone. Because we were just excited to get started on a project we didn't even have. So I guess that's kind of like, for me, that's what it is. I mean, we're surrounded by people that have that kind of energy.
And now you can also add, you like to do a lot of public speaking. So
Yeah.
I hate it.
Yeah. And I'd add to that, Rick, in terms of the healthcare, it's always a learning experience for me. You know, many times we have departments that are coming and sharing what their bottlenecks or you know, issues that may have arisen or that they're just working around for the last 20 years. And it's always interesting to ask questions and learn about the procedures and then find solutions to streamline their operations for them. Not just in a building, but many times we're also looking at, you know, how the actual operation works. Is there something better we can do that facilitates a better building for them at the end of the day?
So the wrap on that is, I once heard somebody say the richness of your life is in the richness of your relationships. And so I looked at the people that were on the networking beforehand, and I looked at so many faces that I knew and care for, and I just thought, man, that's pretty good stuff, where you get to work in a career where you meet so many fabulous people. And architects and designers in general, you know, the creative people out there in the audience, you'll know what I'm talking about. It's pretty heady and inspiring to know that what you do in your career actually has the power and the responsibility to elevate the human spirit, to enrich somebody's experience, to make them better people. So there's a lot that goes into this profession that we all love and enjoy. And I think that this was a curveball question to us. So Rick, I appreciate it. It's a very meaningful question, thoughtful question. And if
well, I also want people that are listening to understand why they would want to come to work for Margle Architects. And you explained why.
Well,
good reasons.
Yeah, let's not forget we're hiring, right? We're hiring. Wow. So
I want to thank.
I would just say in closing to the audience is, you know, buckle your seatbelts. We see this next year being one of recovery, and the year after that one of thriving. So I hope we get to talk with you. Oh, that's the other thing. We had time constraints today, so we couldn't go very deep on many topics. But we're happy to receive phone calls, emails, texts, any way you want to talk to us about something more specific that we didn't get answered today.
And that brings us to the closing of this. I want to thank the team, the Margle team, great, positive people, love to work with them, and I'm sure you will as well. This is being recorded. It also has played live on Facebook on 4 different channels. So you're probably seen all over the world right now. And you'll be getting calls from Russia, you know. The Kremlin wants to remodel their building. But again, I want to thank you all. Great job, great information, wonderful company. Like I said, this is also going to be on YouTube because it's been recorded. And at the end of the show, they'll have all the contact information for everyone here at Margle, the Margle team. I want to thank everyone for attending today, and I wish everyone to have a great day.
Thank you.
Thanks so much.